Twin flame relationship is the ultimate balancing of the two primal forces of creation, the divine feminine energy and the divine masculine energy. These are not genders, but rather forces or charges. This dynamic bond is present in every act of creation, from the origination of star systems right down to the most minute subatomic levels. What follows is a rather in-depth exposé about this relationship as the ultimate physics lesson. There is a relatively new billion-dollar business of finding one's soulmate through scientific psycho-spiritual analysis and matching of co-equivalents. In fact, in 2005 alone, over 5 million people took advantage of this type of service in the US. It is hawked on television commercials, in our magazines, and on our internet. Just complete our questionnaire, and we will find your one true mate in 72 hours. Guaranteed, or your money back. Were that, it were so easy. Where does the concept of one true mate originate, and why do we obsess about it? Our history, religions, legends, myths, and fairy tales are laced with archetypal tales of the two who are one. They are ever represented by the complementary energies of the divine feminine and the divine masculine principles that, when united, create a force of love so powerful that they become the ultimate tale of ecstasy and joy, the much longed for happily ever after. It has been said that this duo unveils in flesh the Alpha and the Omega. When we live in a world of duality, overcome with ego, selfishness, limitation, terrible lack of vision, pain, disillusionment, and the loss of marriage as a true spiritual contract, loss of spirit as the center of human life, it's hard for most to imagine any kind of true love. But Earth is only a little theater of struggle and limitation that we created ourselves, lived out in form by characters we have created from ourselves. In fact, the fairy tale is truer than the illusions we have created. And the reason your heart is ever longing for and searching for your true mate is because you actually have one, and this knowledge is encoded in your very DNA. All human beings long to be truly seen, known, embraced, and loved, to be cherished for the truth beneath our stories, knowing deep inside that our stories are only ways in which we grow. Every single incarnate soul longs to join with his complementary energy, the other half of his heart. This longing is actually encoded within our DNA to ensure our conscious reunion. You may think you are in love with someone, but you are not. You are in love with what others mirror back to you about yourself. As we return to a higher consciousness, all will understand that the union we seek is, absolutely and only, the merging of the balance of the divine feminine and divine masculine aspects of self. Relationships in duality consciousness in this third dimension have merely provided an educational platform. A relationship with any person, condition, place, or thing only mirrors facets of yourself back to you. So looking for love outside of yourself, or seeking another to validate you or add meaning to your life, is a waste of precious time. Romance is about romancing the one, and the one is God. And as twin flames reunite, they become one. It is a dichotomy, a grand paradox of life, but this is how it works in our reality. As soon as you become the fullness of the twin flame energy, giving forth God's limitless love continually from the conduit of your heart, your twin flame will appear before you as a symbol in the form of another. Sounds like applying for a loan. You can only get one if you don't need one, eh? Regardless of how diligently you search for this essence, this identical essence within the opposite body of soul energy, you will never find it, for the search will lead you only right back to your own soul. There is not a single method, exercise, or initiation that can bypass the mirror that reflects you back to you. Your twin flame is not like you, it is you, and all intimate relationship with another entity is a relationship between yourself and God. The journey here is about two things. 1. Self-discovery in relationship to others, and 2. Learning how to manage and balance the divine feminine and masculine creative energy in a way that reveres all life and inures to the benefit of the whole. The primal force of creation. Mother, Father, God, Source, all that is, the ultimate unity consciousness, can be expressed as the originating force of creation. That primal force of creation is present on every level of life, and is sexual in nature, as it involves the combining of two primal energies. Every planet, star, and every life in every galaxy is born of sexual union. The truth of our beings encompasses the entire spectrum of creation. A. One of the primal energies is the divine feminine principle, the ocean of the substance of creation we refer to as love, and the other, the divine masculine principle, the bolt of lightning, the will, the thought which penetrates the substance of creation, creating the pattern or energy mold. B. The interaction causes heat, feeling, which then causes motion, as it excites the electrons with increased vibration. These excited electrons then begin to spin, following the pattern of the spiral, creating a vortex. See, the faster they spin with emotion or energy in motion, the larger the vortex becomes. D. As the electrons are pulled into the vortex, they collide, creating massive amounts of holographic energy. The key is this: whatever is held as the thought mold in the center of the vortex is given life as this emotion is multiplied. In science, we call this process fusion. God is always more. God is always a yes to creation. The only resulting energy of the atomic union of the male-female energy is love. That's all there is. Whether it be frozen or fluid, it is still only love, qualified through conscious direction of the creators, out-picturing in symbols of this dimension. It is only light vibrating at different rates of speed, and it gets frozen, more solid, when the symbol moves away from its true nature. There is no true duality, only love, and a world of ego dreaming it could be separate from Source, playing out limitless possibilities of that dream. God, in its endless love, the great size, strength, and depth we can only imagine, realized that it was the greatest beauty and most magnificent love, with no object upon which to lavish itself. Then arose the idea of the other, the exploration of how to give love, how to express who and what God is. As God moved upon itself with will, thought, and sparked the ethers of its substance of love contained within, giving it direction, it made its first split or first division, its first fusion reaction, creating more of itself, more love in holographic form within countless cells. This was the first experience of separation and density known as light. This first split is referred to in the scientific literature as the Big Bang. The Judeo-Christian religions have termed it Genesis. In spiritual terms, it is commonly referred to as the ongoing moment of creation. In this holographic expansion of the Source, each cell created from this union now reflected perfectly these two divine principles, the two who are one, re-creating the first moment of creation. A pure hologram of God, yet with unique individuality and just enough of a degree of separation to reflect God's perfection, back to one another in complementary energy. This is represented within our religious literature symbolically as the division of oneness from androgyny to male-female. These identical frequencies exist in opposite bodies of energies. These are definite charges, definite energies, with the female being negative and the male being positive, and are everywhere present in nature, the cosmos, and every creation. These two energies, who are in fact one being, for one cannot exist without the other, have also been referred to historically by many names: twin rays, twin souls, soulmates, split aparts, divine counterparts, celestial marriage partners, etc. But rather than argue semantics, I'll refer to them as twin flames. You have only one twin flame, a unique, identical vibrational signature that is common only to individual twin flames from the first split. Within the joint womb created by the union of these principles, any desire held as a thought mold will draw the atomic energy from their fusion and will coalesce into the symbol of that form. You have only one twin flame, though it has many manifestations within the multidimensional divisions of itself. Twin flames are not genders, but rather complementary energy forms. These are the very heart cells of God, as they became the vehicle through which God expanded self, experiencing new and wonderful creation, by expressing divine love into new molds. As these cells passionately created more love through the same atomic process of lovemaking, they created worlds without end and billions of forms, which became worlds and dimensions of the radiant emergence of love in relationship to that which is the Source. Since they are holographic, God is the giver, God is the gift, and God is the receiver in this great circle of life. All of their creations existed within them, as even they existed within God. This is referred to archetypically through Judeo-Christian faiths as Adam and Eve creating in the Garden of Eden. Let's call this History of the World Part 1. But there came a knowing in the consciousness of God that in this state of holographic perfection, the children of God were not becoming individualized or sovereign powers with co-creative abilities due to the proximity of their relationship to the Source. The only way to achieve this sovereignty would be to distance these children from the Source in a safe place where they would not be tempted to magnetically rush back into the Source's perfection, just as we send our children from our orbits to gain their sovereignty. So the children of the first split, twin flames, began to extend parts of themselves into lower, slower, more dense levels of consciousness, whose vibratory frequency literally create a veil of forgetfulness, while each came to understand how to assume his creatorship and sovereignty individually. There was too much energy to be contained within one physical embodiment, so the atomic holographic replication of the twin flame energy was split and split and split, so to speak, with some fragments retained in physicality and some in non-physicality, as all the parts of God went forth to garner intelligence and wisdom. This has been referred to symbolically as the leaving of the Garden of Eden, wherein we chose to clothe ourselves in density and participate in an education of duality, tasting of the tree of good and evil. We refer to this safe space as the third-dimensional schoolroom of planet Earth, a frequency held in a time-space continuum. But the hologram of the Source still exists within our individualized DNA patterns, and within this, the memory of not only our at-one-ment with Source, but also with our divine complementary pattern, our twin flame. Each half of the whole, the two who are one, were destined to always carry the vibratory signature of their original complementary pattern. Therefore, even if you cannot see your twin flame, they are always with you. These are symbolized by the yin-yang sign, the complementary dot in the other half. Because of the atomic nature of the creative potential, when these two halves are joined physically, the two halves were separated in embodiment until such time as they could raise their individual frequencies to a certain level of consciousness. Their untimely joining in ego consciousness could otherwise result in atomic destruction that can actually destroy soul matter. As these separated beings fell lower and lower into slower and more dense levels of consciousness, the fall of man, they each experienced multiple incarnations in both the male and female gender, though each being always retains the primary vibratory pattern of either the divine feminine principle or the divine masculine. This allowed them the experience of balancing these forces within themselves and assisted in attaining their full power and individualized sovereignty. In this experience of education where individualized ego was intended to assist soul to evolve, the density became so congealed, so slow, that for the most part, the soul lost conscious contact with the higher dimensional aspects of its multidimensional self and ego, practically became the sole ruler of the identity. The ego was never intended to create selfishness and negativity. In a world disconnected, however, belief in separation from Source, our twin flame, one another, and all life became the accepted mass consciousness. Survival became the ego's playground. Let's call this History of the World Part 2. This mutually agreed upon expansion of God was called the Great Outbreath. The homecoming now. God has made the clarion call for the homecoming, for love is the true nature of our beings. The great in-breath has begun. The lower dimensional aspects of the children of God are being awakened from the dream in the theater of duality, for the encoding within our DNA for unity. Consciousness has been activated. During our sojourn, we have indeed achieved our individuality, and now understand our thoughts and feelings create our reality, and that we are responsible for our creations and how they affect the whole. We have played every role, sinner and saint, villain and hero. Our creative power will be expressed by the completely unique beings that we have become, with a strong awareness of ourselves that nothing else could have afforded save our sojourn through ego and back into spiritual individuality. However, during this education, we have created countless destructive energy forms which need to be recycled back into their primary substance for reuse in a constructive fashion. Also, the vibratory signature of the belief in separation created by ego is still strong. The energy required to shatter these energy forms is atomic in nature. Hence, God is asking for the return in consciousness of twin flames. This is a special dispensation, for they have never been allowed to join until such time as each complementary half had risen to the pure vibration of love. Those beings called to this reunion will be of a certain level of consciousness who have agreed on some level to restore the cosmic DNA patterns, the original divine blueprints of the Immaculate Concept, and anchor it in this dimension. The birth of the real twin flame energies on Earth is the most important, most critical ingredient to the transformation of this world, for they are on the leading edge of returning the Christ consciousness to the individual soul.